What happened the day all Icelandic women didn't go to work? On October 24, 1975, Iceland was paralyzed. Banks, factories, and some stores had to close. Schools and nurseries didn't open. Fathers were forced to take their kids to work. There was no one to cook dinner at home. Stores ran out of sausages. They were easy to cook. What happened was called Women's Day Off. 90% of women took part in the unprecedented strike. They simply refused to do anything that day. They didn't go to work. They abandoned their household chores. They didn't even do any child care. Instead, they took to the streets. Their demands were simple: equal pay and employment. Icelandic men were flabbergasted. They called it the Long Friday. Nobody had been prepared for it. Radio presenters in Reykjavik tried to gauge the scale of the issue. They called rural areas to check if it was happening there too. The phones were answered by husbands. They had stayed home to look after the children. Children could also be heard in the background of the broadcasts. The newscasters had to bring their own kids to work too. In Reykjavik, the turnout was around 25,000 women. They gathered in the central square to sing, speak, and talk. There were just 220,000 Icelanders in 1975, so this was a huge deal. Iceland had always been considered progressive. It was the third country in the world to grant women voting rights, but it remained very conservative in day-to-day life. There were just 3 female lawmakers in 1935. This was an anomaly for a Nordic country. The idea of a mass strike formed over 5 years. It gained support from all corners of society. Iceland's unions backed it unequivocally. Women's Day Off united women from all backgrounds. There was no political division. The speakers at the Reykjavik rally were very different. One was a housewife, another a worker. 2 were members of parliament. 1 was a feminist. The final speech was given by Aðalheiður Bjarnfreðsdóttir. She represented the cleaners union. They were the lowest paid women in Iceland. Aðalheiður wasn't used to public speaking, but her speech made her a star.
Men have governed the world since time immemorial, and what has the world been like?
She went on to describe an unfair, war-torn world. Aðalheiður would become an MP herself in later years. But how did the men feel about it? At first, they thought it was kind of funny. Gradually, they understood it was serious. Interestingly, most of them wholeheartedly supported the movement. Even the conservatives said there was nothing wrong with it. After all, equal rights were guaranteed by law. No women lost their jobs that day. A year later, Parliament passed a law guaranteeing equal pay. 5 years later, in 1980, Vigdís Finnbogadóttir became president. She was the first democratically elected female president in history. She beat 3 male candidates. Vigdís credits Women's Day Off with her success.
Things went back to normal the next day, but with the knowledge that women are, as well as men, the pillars of society. So many companies and institutions came to a halt, and it showed the force and necessity of women. It completely changed the way of thinking.
Today, women hold 52% of the seats in Iceland's parliament.